Hi guys, I've just come out of this game and I was almost a little bit ashamed to show you, but I have to because this is such an instructive endgame that comes out of this fairly drawish Russian position. So here, it often leads... I always play like this, which pins the knight to the king and it leads to an early queen trade. Now in future, I'm going to go for this opening line just to try and make the game more interesting. I almost offered a draw on move 4. But yeah, we got this. They take queen trade. And normally you take like this towards the center, but I think the engine is showing slightly better to actually take away from the center just to keep all the pawns together in this position. And now I just develop the bishops, everything pretty normal. I think this is nice because if takes, I develop my piece and I trade my knight off for their bishop. I'm also threatening this, so that was my thinking. I think this is drawish, but if anything, a tiny bit more playable for white. I decide to pin, not really a true pin because the rook's covering rook, and then they trade off, improving my structure. So I'm sort of drawish to happy at this point. My rook's got the open file, and yeah, their king comes in maybe to allow an exchange of the rooks. If so, I would have probably taken because it puts their king on the edge of the board, and it's then my move, so I can advance my king, which might be crucial in the end game. Who's got the more advanced king? Now here I go for... yeah, I should have gone here so I could check maybe. I go for this thinking that if there's a check, maybe I can hide my king behind the rook. And then instead of taking and advancing their king, I advance my king anyway. Then if they take, I can take. Key difference. Just to get... So this results in my king being slightly further forward. And we're coming on to a super instructive bit, guys, that you just need to take note of. So I'll quickly get through this. Once their knight retreats, they've got one less attacker on this square, so I know I can go for this pawn break here, which kicks their king away from opposition in me, and thus allows my king into their position. Now, I missed this tactic here, which won the game. Check, they take, we take their knight, and there's no complications here. We just gobble, gobble, and push. Simple. But I missed this, and I go for the pawns, which does lead to some complications. They're going after the base of my pawn chain, so I go for this. Takes, I get check. They go after my bishop here, and again, I did consider this in the game. Should I just sack my bishop here and get this past pawn? How do they even stop me? And you know what? Takes. Take. Here, push. Maybe here, push. And they're going to have to sack their knight. So I should have gone for that. But anyway, I get this check. And my pawn is coming up, and they sack their knight, but their king is shouldering my king out of the game. So it's pretty tricky, this endgame. But I do find this gorgeous move in a second here. Look at that bishop. Cutting the king off, stopping the pawn progressing, and now my king can march in. And I'm very happily winning here. Up 56 points of material. And what do? I'm below the game right now, guys. You can see the arrow. It's showing I took, right? I took because if push, they can get the king in and, you know, maybe win my pawns. But you've got to remember, if they win the base of the pawn, I'm going to win this. And my pawn's also going to be pushing. And I've got the bishop to sack for their pawn. I instead take the fatal error. Look at this bar. Look at this bar. It goes from up 56 to up 0.8 points of material. I create a past... Well, I'm going to gobble this pawn. So I effectively create a past A pawn. Guys, A pawns are not good. H pawns are not good. Do not try and create them. Unless you can... If you can help it, do not create a pawn on the edge of the board. Because look at this endgame. Absolutely tragic. So it's still saying I'm winning here. Oh, and I throw it again. I literally throw it again. You've got to play here. Because then we can push the pawn. And I eventually get my king out. So 2 massive errors in a very simple flanking pawn endgame. 1, I created the horrible flanking pawn. And then 2, for some reason, I let their king get into the corner. An even more grievous error than the first one. I can't believe I let him do that. And the resulting endgame is just depressingly drawing. They just stay in the corner, and you can never kick the king out. All you can do is stalemate him once you push the pawn up. Absolutely horrible, guys. Just please, don't create past A and H pawns if you can help it. And don't let their king get into the corner if you've got said past pawns on the outside. Cheers, guys. Like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.